A lot of the architecture here has kind of a Caribbean look to it, and that makes sense because through the years, a lot of ocean-going folks have lived here. They've been going down into the Caribbean and down that way and seeing some architecture they weren't familiar with but liked very much and duplicated when they came back here and built their own buildings or houses. Here's the Hansel House on the left. That's kind of a Caribbean-influenced house, and it's also where Robert E. Lee stayed during his time as a consultant at the fort. Also, on a pretty regular basis, these people were visited by a lady by the name of Emmeline Pigott. And Emmeline was from the South. She actually lost a loved one at the Battle of Gettysburg. And so she became an even stauncher supporter of the Southern cause. And during the time that Union soldiers occupied Beaufort, she made her way around town on the pretense of trying to be helpful. What she was really doing is gathering information on what was going on, what she was hearing the Union soldiers talk about. And anything that she thought might be useful to the South, she passed that information on to them. Now, they finally got wise to what she was up to. They arrested her up at Newbern, held her for a period of time, and then finally turned her loose. She wore one of these fashionable hoop skirts. And when they arrested her, they said she was carrying all kinds of contraband, including a pair of boots, several pairs of trousers, some shirts, and letters to soldiers. And so they held her for a little bit, and then they finally let her go. She is actually buried over in Morehead City. We're going to turn left on Queen Anne. If you think about Beaufort's establishment in 1709, it's pretty simple to surmise that the street is named after Queen Anne, and she was pretty well pleased that they had done this. In fact, so much so that she made a contribution to the town, and they used it to plant elm trees up and down the street here. In the old days, there's actually some photographs of these elm trees. They would whitewash the tree trunks just to make them stand out. I think most people know about Dutch elm disease, but also we are on the coast here, right? So there's been a lot of storms come through here. The combination of Dutch elm disease and all the tropical storms or hurricanes have kind of taken out most of the elm trees. Okay, we're heading down in the direction of Beaufort Inn. That's Gallant's Channel again down there. So we made a big U-turn. This is actually the site. Ann Street is the site. Watch these tree limbs now. This is the site of the first highway bridge. It was built over here in 1927. We're on an island after all. So 1927 we have a highway bridge. About 20 years earlier, there's a railroad bridge built over here. And this is another tight spot. You students of Dick now, this is why he has such big muscles. This bus has no power steering. And if we were to have a full load on here, about 70 people, it would be really difficult. It's bad enough at best. Sometimes people, it hasn't happened today, but sometimes people will park maybe where they shouldn't. And that kind of creates even more problems. But we'll be okay, don't worry. The Beaufort Inn has about 40 rooms. We have two inns that are about this size, the other one being the Inlet Inn. We'll see that in a few minutes. And then there are a number of bed and breakfasts in Beaufort here. The water table in Beaufort is somewhere between 3 and 5 feet. So you dig 6 feet or deeper, you're apt to hit water. Look up this little private driveway to the left. That's the Captain John Hill house on the left up there. He had 17 children, ladies. But he outlived 3 of his 4 wives. Now, the other interesting, he was a sea captain. The other interesting thing about that house is that it was not built there. It was actually built out on Portsmouth Island, and it was floated over here to the main, well, actually to the Beaufort area, and it was moved for a second time to the present location, which is not too unusual a circumstance. It's part of a neighborhood over in Morehead City called the Promised Land. that's made up of a number of houses that were built out somewhere else and then floated over. The Buckman house on the right here has a, it's kind of hard to say, is that the first floor or is that a basement? Well, it's probably not in the ground there more than 2 feet. Because as I said, if you wanted an 8-foot basement there, you'd wind up with a 3-foot deep swimming pool, which probably would not be a great idea. We're getting ready for a homes tour at the end of the month, the 26th and 27th, and then in December, and this is the case every year, we have 2 homes tours. The December one is a candlelight tour. This is a typical early Beaufort house on the left here. It has a plaque on the front that says Piver House. The style of that is called a story and a jump. So you have living space down on the first floor, and when it was first built, probably unfinished space on the second floor, a sleeping loft or something like that. And then on the right here, with the nice white fence around it, is a 2-story house with a red roof and something on top up there. It looks like a deck or something. What's that called? A widow's walk. Yeah, well, in an ocean-going community here, without the benefit of good communication, like cell phones or any phones or whatever, if a family member is going to sea, they're going to tell the family, look, if they're going now, they'll say, well, we're going to be back the first part of October. So when that time rolls around, somebody in the family, probably on a pretty regular basis, is going to be making their way up there to the widow's walk and be looking for a ship's mast or some evidence that the loved one has made it back safely. It doesn't always happen. That's widow's walk. And then we have St. Paul's Church coming up here on the left. Another building here that has kind of that nautical look to it. Buildings were designed in some cases by shipbuilders or built by shipbuilders, and St. Paul's Church is no different. If we went in the sanctuary and looked up, what you would see is a ceiling that looks much like the hull of a ship turned upside down. So you have those ribs that come up from the eaves of the roof up to a center beam that runs down the middle.